Okay, so we're just going to walk through creating a new virtual machine for installing CentOS Linux. So here I'm on a VMware server console. It's actually on a Windows machine. Maybe in some of the videos that you might see me using VMware Fusion on a Mac, but they're fairly similar. It's made by the same company, VMware. This is VMware server, and first, when you open up the VMware server console, we're going to say connect to host. We're going to select localhost because it's the VMware server instance running on the local machine. Click OK. We see I've already got a virtual machine installed here of Red Hat Enterprise Linux version 4. We're going to click the Home tab, and then we're going to select New Virtual Machine. So we click on that, and the virtual machine wizard opens up. So we click on Next, and we're going to create a typical virtual machine, which is the default. We're going to click Next. Guest operating system is going to be Linux. Version, you click on this drop down arrow here, and the closest that we've got for this CentOS Linux 5.1 that I'm using is Red Hat Enterprise Linux 4. That's because CentOS is a rebuild of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and 4 is the latest version in the VMware machine, so we're going to pick that one. Then we click Next. It's then going to say, what do we want to call the virtual machine? Actually, I want to call it something different. I want to call it CentOS 5.1. And notice as I change the virtual machine name, the location name changed also. I've got a drive E, and then I've got a directory or folder for VMs, where I keep my VMs. The default location, I believe, is my virtual machines in my documents or something, but you can change that to suit where you want it to be. Okay, so we're going to click Next. Then asks us what type of network type do we want to use. So we're going to say network connection, use bridge networking. What that means is the operating system will get direct access to our external network, and that it will get its own IP address on that external network. There are other options, but for this particular instance we're going to use bridge networking. One quite nice feature is the use host only networking. Basically VMware sets up a sort of an internal network on the host machine, and it allows, if you had say 2 or 3 virtual machines running on the host, providing you had enough memory and processing power, you would be able to network those devices together for lab type scenarios just within the virtual machine environment. So we're going to stick with use bridge networking. So we now click Next. By default it asks us the virtual disk can never be larger than the maximum capacity we set here. I think 6 gigabytes is going to be enough for us, so I'm just going to reduce that down to 6. I'm going to allocate all disk space now, check. That's going to give us a bit more performance benefits. Take a bit of time to read that. You can allow it to say, I don't want it to grow bigger than say 6 gigabytes, but it doesn't set up the space in advance, but we're going to set it up in advance for a bit more performance. And then I'm going to click Finish. And then that's going to create the disk for us. And once it's done that, we'll then have a virtual machine environment to install our version of CentOS onto. So I'm going to pause the video now, and we'll come back later for the installing CentOS session. Thanks very much. Okay, so now we can see after it's created the virtual hard drive for the machine, we can see the virtual machine now completed for CentOS 5.1. It's currently powered off. The guest OS is a Red Hat Enterprise Linux 4 type of OS, not really a big deal. And what else have we got? We should see the allocated memory there, 256 megabytes. We've got a hard disk, emulated SCSI drive, CD-ROM, floppy disk, Ethernet, and one processor. Actually, the floppy I actually don't want. So what we're going to do is actually remove that. Okay, so there's two ways we can remove the floppy disk. Basically, we can go to VM settings, and that will open a dialog box, and just close that. And the other way to open it is start this virtual machine, or to use the keyboard combination Control D. So we just open that up there, and to remove the floppy disk I just select the floppy and then click remove. Now the reason I've removed that is basically because I'm going to once I've installed CentOS 5.1 on this machine, I'm going to copy that image and use it onto another machine that doesn't have a floppy drive. A lot of modern machines now don't have floppy drives, and I want it to be able to be used on other platforms that don't have a floppy drive. But what I do want to add is a USB capability. So there I clicked add, that opens the add hardware wizard, click next, and then we see USB controller, so I select that. I want to add a USB controller. Other options to add would be things like serial ports, parallel ports, etc. You could add a secondary Ethernet adapter, and various things. So what we're going to do is just click next, and we've now got the USB controllers enabled, and it says use the devices menu to connect or disconnect USB devices, and that's about it. So there we go. So we click finish, and now we can see we've got a USB controller that's present. Okay, and that's it. When we were installing, or actually not installing, creating this virtual machine image, we could have used a custom setup and chosen what we wanted in it, but usually if you just pick a typical machine and then just edit it, I find that's usually just as quick to do. So that's about it. So we now have a virtual machine image installed, ready to install an operating system onto. In this case it'll be CentOS 5.1. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the install video.